We did everything we were supposed to do and we still ended up here. I'm talking to the women that have been on their own for quite some time. They probably didn't get any divorce settlement or very little divorce settlement, and they probably have very little or no safety net. It's just ourselves. There's a very real financial divide that nobody talks about. There are women in retirement that have retired with a partner. They've been with the same man a long time. There are plenty of women that gained assets through divorce. So when that woman got divorced, whether it was her choice or his choice, there was plenty of assets to split up. And with the settlement, she came out looking quite well. She came out looking quite stable financially. There are some women, and this happens a lot more as we age, who ended up solo because their husband passed away. As a couple, they were financially sound. They might have even been well off. So she's going to be fine. Going forward in retirement, she has good income and good assets. And then there are the rest of us. There are a lot of women in retirement in their 60s, 70s and onwards, and they're doing it rather tough. They might never have been stable or comfortable financially. They might never have been middle class, although I was for a long time, but you can still end up struggling in retirement, and it's not your fault. For myself, and I know there's a lot of women like me, I have never been fully financially supported in my life by a man, and from some point on, I was not supported financially at all by any man. This is what can make all the difference in the world to a woman who's solo in retirement, and this is the big divide. I think in ways society can judge these women, and I'm going to say it, I think sometimes there are other women that judge these women. Women that have never walked a step in their shoes. There are women that have never had to even put their own garbage bin out. You cannot possibly understand what it's like to have to do it all yourself all the time. And some will blame women for not being more financially secure in retirement. Somehow it's going to be her fault. They'll say it was her fault, she chose the wrong man. We all know when we get married, and lots of us in my generation got married when we were reasonably young, we all know that we're in love. We have trust and faith that the man we marry is going to be a good provider for our children. He's going to provide security for our family. Over the years, we continue to love this man and we stay loyal to this man. But after some time, we start to see that this man isn't really stepping up the way we hoped or believed he would. And yet leaving and getting a divorce is not an easy decision. We know we're going to be breaking up our family unit. Most women will try everything to avoid that. It's the last thing they ever wanted to do. And sometimes the man leaves them. Sometimes he leaves them for another woman. Can you please tell me why this is her fault? This is another generation. It's not the generation of today. We were the generation that grew up in the 50s and the 60s. Most of us were encouraged to marry for love. Women didn't know when they married a man what the future was going to hold. They didn't have a crystal ball, but they had a lot of hope. You don't go into a marriage saying, he's a nice guy, but he's a hopeless provider. He'll never look after me or my children. It's true that some women after divorce went on to meet another man. And maybe this new man is a better provider, or not. But a lot of women never remarried. They never partnered up again. And it's all well and good to blame them again and say they were jaded. But you know what? It's not easy to meet a new partner, and particularly when you've been so disappointed and so let down the first time around, and sometimes you have lost trust. As a single mother, it's not easy to date. You don't have a lot of time on your hands, and you have to be very careful who you bring into your home, who you bring into your family dynamics. Is this guy going to be a good fit? And sometimes that guy just never appears. You're busy working, you're busy taking care of everyone's needs, and the years go by. And at times you might have tried quite hard to find a suitable partner, but trying doesn't mean you're always going to end up with the guy that's right for you. A lot of women become so disillusioned by the first marriage, they just haven't got it in them to try again. And for those women, all their financial responsibility is theirs alone. This is not bitterness, and I push back against that. This is reality. A lot of people might say, well, why didn't she retrain? Why didn't she go to college or to university as an adult student? It's been a long time in this country since education was free. People pay off student debts for years. When you are the sole provider for your family, when you're on your own, you might get some help from the ex, you might get a little bit. Some women got none. How are you going to stop working so you can go and study? Who's going to pay the rent, the electricity? Who's going to buy the groceries? And of course you could study part-time and work part-time. But is that going to be enough to provide for yourself and your children? Probably not. There are lots of regional areas that don't have colleges or universities. They can be quite a distance away, as if it's not difficult enough, travelling to work back and forth. But driving an hour to go to classes might be just more time than you've got and more money than you've got. And even when you study full-time, to end up with a certificate or a degree can take years. And it takes a lot longer if you're doing it part-time. Most solo mothers didn't have that privilege. One of the reasons I wanted to talk about this is I had a couple of comments on my videos and it really made me think about it. All women in retirement are not financially equal. All women that are solo are not financially equal. And you simply don't know what you don't know. In my lifetime, I've known very few women who I consider lazy. Most women I know have worked quite hard. They've worked at jobs where they didn't want to work at. They never thought they were going to have to work at. But when you need money, you'll do things that you have to do in order to keep a roof over your head and feed your kids. I hold on to the fact that we came from a particular generation. The generation previous to ours, our mother's generation and our grandmother's generation, they would hold on to a relationship no matter how grim it was, because divorce wasn't really an option. For my generation, even though a lot of women didn't really want to get divorced, it became more acceptable. And it seemed like a better solution. They realised that they didn't have to stay. That old concept of staying for the sake of the children, it wasn't as strong with my generation. We didn't believe that was our only option. So here we are, and I'm choosing to keep it real. It's not all doom and gloom by a long shot. There's a lot of women, probably most women, who do not regret leaving their marriage. There's also a lot of women happy and content being solo. Even if they're struggling financially, they would still choose to be solo. For many women, the independence was hard won. Many years on their own, figuring it out as they go. And in their 60s and 70s and older, they're still figuring it out. All people are different how they view being solo or whether they prefer to have a partner. There are plenty of women that might prefer just to have what they call a companion as they age. Someone to hang out with and do things occasionally with, someone to have contact with, a phone call here, a text there. Personally, I'm not like that. I'm probably still a bit of a hopeless romantic, and I think there's a lot of women like me also. We don't want just a companion, we want more than that. We probably don't want to get married again, and like myself, many women don't want to live with a man again. We're fine to live together apart, as they call it. Ideally, I think what some women would want is a situation where I have your back, you have my back, we support each other. We support each other emotionally and I suppose even physically if needed. There's a lot of consideration, there's a lot of respect. You value that person. They're important to you, they're an important part of your life, and everybody knows you as a couple. That's what a lot of women would like. But women like this don't settle. They know what they want, they know what they don't want. And as we become older, I think we become more firm in that commitment to ourselves. We feel like we owe it to ourselves to be selective. And ironically, it's very hard to be selective as we age because there's less availability of the type of person that we would want to meet. There seems to be a lot less opportunity of how we could meet them. And also for the kind of guy we would want, we feel like they're a little bit thin on the ground. Financially, it's not a solution we're looking for. Although in the right situation, in the right relationship, it could be incredibly beneficial financially, not just emotionally. But as I said, women won't settle just because they think financially that would be advantageous for them. We don't have to anymore, even if we are struggling somewhat financially. That happened to my grandmother's generation. That's how it was for some women in that generation. My grandmother remarried. I don't know what age she was. I could only assume she was somewhere in her 30s. And her husband died from an accident reasonably young and left her with 4 children to take care of. She lived in a rural area. She was brought up in a farm and she only knew farm work. She told me she obtained some cleaning work in offices of a night time when the offices all closed up. But eventually a guy came along. He was an older guy, and in some ways he financially rescued her. And I suppose some would say that became a marriage of convenience. These days, we don't do that. We might be solo, we might even be a little bit poor, but we have our freedom, we have our independence, and we're not letting that go easily at all. I stand by the fact that solo women, in particular those that have raised families, are some of the toughest people in society. I think we have a quiet strength that is not acknowledged, and we're not looking for acknowledgement. But we're also not looking for judgment. There are so many ways to find enjoyment without having money, or lots of money. And today in my life was a perfect example. It is a glorious autumn day, and I mean glorious. Big blue sky, perfect day. I went for a swim in the ocean. How good is that? How lucky am I?